When we cut it into sticks versus coins, we see that the kids take it more and better and faster. So I think the way it's exposed is important, matching up with different dippers and different sauces and whatever the vegetable or the fruit is. I think the consistency is the main thing. Don't give up on it. And the kids will gravitate towards it.
Welcome to Culinary Medicine Recipe. I'm so happy you're here. I'm your host, Dr. Sabrina Falke. I was a primary care doctor for 16 years and went to school for 4 years to specialize in culinary medicine. In this work, I get to combine my passion and expertise in both medicine and food to teach people about food as medicine and to empower them to understand what ingredients optimize health and also how to cook those ingredients to make delicious meals. On this show, I interview top chefs, doctors, healthcare visionaries, and food service professionals who are making great strides in the field of culinary medicine. Join me as we continue to explore the amazing world of culinary medicine, where I will empower you to make changes to your health and wellness with great food right away. Welcome to today's show. I'd like to thank the sponsor of this episode, Pacific Coast Producers. Today, we're diving into a topic that is as critical as it is urgent: school lunches. But first, let's take a moment to understand why this conversation matters so deeply. Here in the US, nearly 1 in 5 children are living with obesity. Over a quarter of adolescents aged 12 to 19 are now pre-diabetic. And shockingly, only 2% of children meet the daily recommended intake of fruits and vegetables. And beyond individual health, there's the issue of access. Over 13 million children live in food insecure households, meaning that school meals are often the most reliable and nutritious food they get each day, and sometimes the only food they get. So how do we turn these challenges into change? By hearing directly from the leaders innovating inside school kitchens. Today, I'm honored to welcome 3 incredible guests. They are chefs, educators, and advocates who are transforming the school food landscape with passion, purpose, and creativity. First, we have Chef Taylor Thompson, Assistant Director of School Nutrition Services at Northeast ISD in San Antonio, Texas. Taylor's culinary journey took him from restaurants and catering into school kitchens, where he's been instrumental in expanding scratch-made offering and creating meals that kids love and parents can trust. Next, joining us from Northern California is Chef Jason Hull. He's the Director of Culinary Services and Executive Chef at Marin County Day School. Jason leads a vibrant seed-to-table program grounded in seasonal ingredients and sustainability. A longtime advocate for child health and food systems change, Jason brings decades of high-level culinary experience to the school lunch tray. And last but not least, we're joined by Chef Rebecca Polson, a national K-12 culinary trainer and consultant who has worked with school districts across the country. From James Beard restaurants to district test kitchens, Rebecca brings her expertise, energy, and innovation to every recipe she touches, helping schools make meals that are chef-driven, culturally relevant, and kid-approved. Together, we'll talk about the creative and logistical realities of school food. So let's dig in. Welcome to the shows, Chef Rebecca, Chef Taylor, and Chef Jason. So, Chef Rebecca, I'm going to start with you. What inspired you to work in school food service?
I grew up with my grandfather as a chef and always loved to cook. And I actually went to school for fashion merchandising and textiles, and then decided to go to culinary school and follow my grandfather's footsteps as a chef. And I did the fine dining and research and development for a restaurant chain. And I just wasn't feeling good about the foods that I was serving to our customers and started Googling healthy chef, nutrition chef, and I came across an executive chef position with Nashville Public Schools, and it sounded like the dream job, getting to feed kids healthy foods. So I've been doing this now a little over 12 years and super passionate about it and excited about going to work every day.
How about you, Chef Jason?
Yeah, so I also went to culinary school early on and went into the restaurant industry. I was going to be the next great pastry chef coming out of the Culinary Institute of America at Greystone in Napa. And after a couple of years of fine dining restaurants and the grind that brings to life, I decided I needed a break. There was a real burnout kind of situation, and it wasn't conducive to starting a young family. So previously, I'd been in education and found myself at the school I'm at today. This is going to be my 32nd year at Marin Country Day School. coming up, and the chef of 20 years had just retired as I'm taking my break from fine dining, and they tagged me to come in and feed the kids well, and possibly create a model for the rest of the country of how we could feed our kids well in schools, and been doing that for the last 21 years, directing the kitchen there, and it's been amazing, incredible ride.
And Chef Jason, when you mentioned this stage of burnout that you were entering or knew you were deep in, did you feel when you started the work with Marin County that shifted right away? Could you see that this looked different for your career journey?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you're on a school schedule with holidays off and nights and weekends to yourself, you just find a different appreciation for that. And having summers off, it's the school schedule that really made me excited about it. And then being able to create school gardens and show kids where their food comes from and how to fuel their bodies in sustainable ways for them and the planet has just boosted my career, and it's been incredible.
And how about you, Chef Taylor?
I don't have like a story that really of my inspiration to get into school nutrition. It happened by accident, which I think happens to a lot of folks. I was a restaurant guy, doing the long weekends and the holidays and all of that. And I had gotten myself into corporate catering. And so I had a Monday through Friday breakfast and lunch uh, deal going on, and it was really great. And business was booming. And basically, COVID shut the whole thing down. I mean, nobody was having in-person lunches anymore. And I ran across school nutrition on Indeed. And I also have an education background. So when I read through the job description, you're back in the school setting, you're doing training. And I mean, I showed it to my wife. I was like, this is written for me. I really hope I get this. And so I guess what inspires me to be here is getting this shot and seeing this sort of built-in why, and just how good it feels to be in a cafeteria and watch kids eating food that you worked on just for them. Here we are, and I'm here to stay.
I love hearing the stories, some of them being almost a beautiful oops. So I would love to know. So here we've heard from all three of you. How do you know each other? How did your worlds come together? And I'll have Chef Jason start that conversation.
I met Chef Rebecca back in 2016 through the Culinary Institute of America has the
Yep,
Healthy Kids
that's right.
Collaborative. And that's where we met, and that's where I met Chef Taylor as well a couple of years ago, right? Is that correct? So the Culinary Institute of America's Kids Collaborative is really bringing a lot of school nutrition leaders from around the country together every year to work on different projects, and we meet in person every December in Napa.
That's actually where I learned about this work of culinary medicine, was at the CIA at their Healthy Kitchens, Healthy Lives conference. And I was honored to speak last February to inspire others. So now we're going to dive deep into how does this work happen on a granular basis. So Chef Taylor, what are the criteria that you guys use to create the recipes?
Yeah, I guess we probably all have a different answer to these questions. We all do things kind of differently. You can't be as creative, I guess, as just a regular chef would, because, there is a starting point with rules that you have to follow. So for us, it's kind of looking for inspiration in different ways, whether it be at product shows or things that are currently trending out in the quote unquote real world. And we look at ways that we can do that. And then for me, I try to figure out how I'm going to fall within certain regulations before I even start testing the recipe. I want to make the food taste as good as possible, but I understand that there's limitations. So we kind of start there and then go through the process of testing with our staff and our students and seeing if things make the cut.
So how much of a child's taste comes into this? How much say do they have in that, Chef Jason?
Yeah, I think the great thing about cooking for kids is that they're super honest, and they're going to tell you what they like and don't like. whether you want it or not, right? And so over the couple of decades I've been in my school kitchen, we do intently listen to the kids and do taste testings through our garden program. If we're going to bring something new on the menu, we want to make sure that it's going to be, well received by most of the kids. I have a captive audience. The kids eat at school. Everyone eats together at school. We're a private K through 8. So lunch is included for everybody. And I think really listening to what the kids have to say when I'm working with them in small groups, and if it's kindergartners or eighth graders or anyone in between, I think they know what they like, but we also really put in a lot of energy of teaching them how their palate grows and changes as they grow. So exposing them to new foods without pushing it on them is kind of the key to our success. We have a beautiful salad bar each day, and we really utilize that salad bar to really show them new fruits and vegetables in different forms, and they gravitate to it. They're curious about it, and especially when you involve them in growing food on campus. We have some extensive gardens. They are more apt to try it and like it for sure. I got the whole community hooked on kale a few years back, and I think that's just a big win for everybody. So, yeah, the exposure's huge.
The vision of the garden and the involvement, that hands-on and the full sensorial experience, I can imagine adds so much of buy-in. Is black for lack of a better word. Yeah,
absolutely.
And Chef Rebecca, Chef Taylor brought up the rules, and I'm sure there's a lot of guidelines. There's two that I'm particularly curious about at this moment. One is about the nutrition aspect, and one is about, I guess we'll start with budget. So what is the framework to start with as you go into this meal preparation? Because there's the garden, but you can't rely necessarily what may be growing in the garden. So what are the rules? What's this framework, the borders that you're working with?
So the National School Lunch Program is a federally funded program. So we do have to follow rules and regulations, whether that's following a meal pattern and nutrient analysis, or, our reimbursement rates. And we get reimbursed for participation. So anything we prepare doesn't mean that we will get reimbursed for it. It's only on that participation. So that really makes us want to serve food that kids eat. But again, it's a little bit kind of a balance between that nutrition education, the exposure, and then meeting the budget constraints, the nutrition constraints, and having this delicate, healthy balance. It can be difficult. It's like a game of Tetris, but I say we don't give kids enough credit for their adventurous palates. They're, going out and seeing fast casual restaurants that have these more global cuisines. As we continue to expose them, whether it's through the salad bar, customization in, grain bowls and things like that, it really helps with the participation, which then helps our program grow as we can then in turn put that money right back into our program and invest in it.
Taylor, when you talk about the federal funding, is that only for public schools, or is that also used in private schools?
That would be for anyone who participates in the program, which means, there's a big, thick book of regulations and things you have to do in order to qualify for that.
How do you measure participation? Is it people choosing to partake in the school lunches, or are you looking at how much waste there is essentially at the end of a school day?
So as far as the reimbursement goes, we're looking at the number of students who came through the line, and, usually they're entering an ID number, but somehow we're attaching every single reimbursable meal to a student. And then however many that is times the reimbursement rate is what we get. As far as tracking the different items and different menu items and recipes, it gets a little bit trickier because in the restaurant world, we have a point of sale system where everything gets rung in and we can keep track of inventory and we know how things are going. But here it's a matter of going back and measuring what's left over and kind of doing the reverse math. And then, in our case, we have 66 schools. So we just have to hope that those numbers are super accurate when we're making decisions about what stays and what gets taken off the menu.
When you say 66 schools, can you say, is this in one specific school district, or give us a context of what,
Sure.
how are those 66 schools involved?
We have 66 schools. It's changing. We're all on-site production, so every school has its own kitchen. We have elementary, middle, and high schools. And in San Antonio, it's a little bit different. It's kind of sectioned off into smaller districts. There's not just one big San Antonio that covers the whole city. And so we represent only the northeast corner of the city. So we're big, but we're only a small fraction of San Antonio.
So this is 66 schools that you're talking about, all in that specific area.
All in our district.
Of San Antonio.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. So Chef Jason, I'm going to ask you a glossary of terms here to help us out for our audience to understand. So Chef Taylor mentioned essentially what I'm getting as scratch cooking kitchens versus heat and serve. Could you explain what the difference is with those?
Yeah, I think, scratch cooking. So we do all scratch cooking at my school, and I'm just a one-off school feeding 750 people a day. So when, Chef Taylor and Chef Rebecca talk about these large school districts, I can't even wrap my head around that. And it's incredible work that all those people are doing. We are doing all scratch cooking. We're about 95% scratch cooking right now in my school. When we talk about heat and serve, I think Chef Rebecca or Chef Taylor could kind of talk to more about heat and serve, which is done, I think, in, I would say, a large percentage of the school districts across the country, and mainly because they're feeding hundreds of thousands of kids in some of these districts, and that's the way you have to feed the masses, which is getting better and better as we all share ideas and work together, especially in the Healthy Kids Collaborative, as far as moving things forward to feeding kids as well as we can in schools. But there are some parameters, especially with the bigger districts, like I said, it will be more heat and serve sometimes when they don't have the kitchens or facilities to scratch cook. But that's shifting. I think that's a national shift as we go forward here.
So a lot of people in our audience won't actually know what either of those two are. So let's go even further back.
Everyone has a different definition of what scratch cooking is. And that's really starting with, a whole product and then breaking it down into and incorporating it into a recipe with other ingredients, whole ingredients. Then there's speed scratch cooking, which is what's happening a lot as we make that shift from heat and serve to scratch cooking. And that's using some of those already semi-processed items and incorporating them into a recipe. And then there's the heat and serve, which is mostly your individually wrapped products that are coming from a manufacturer that you are just reheating, and serving. I will say that model was absolutely necessary during COVID. And since then has taken a little bit longer to get back to the speed scratch or scratch cooking due to product availability, labor shortages, supply chain issues, all of those things. But there is a movement through chefs moving to schools, like all three of us, where we are, working with districts, manufacturers, and all of our partners to get more scratch cooking in schools.
My understanding, because this has happened in hospitals too, is there are some facilities that are only set up for heat and serve. So there's not the ability to do scratch cooking, or the new term for me that I'm already forgetting what you said.
Speed
but
scratch.
Is there, what was that?
Speed scratch.
Speed scratch. Thank you. New glossary of terms for me here as well. Is there overall in the kitchens, is that the case also in schools where there are many that are only able to do heat and serve? So essentially the moving over is harder than just saying, okay, now we're going to choose this because the whole kitchen needs to be redone. Is that the case, Taylor? I see you nodding.
Yeah.
Have you?
I mean, I'm super fortunate where in the district that I'm at, we have banks of ovens and tilt skillets and steam kettles. We have lots of equipment that allow us to do a lot of scratch cooking. But I mean, I hear stories of, much bigger districts where they have an oven and a rice cooker and that's it. And so there's a lot of limitations there for sure. And sometimes speed scratch is really the only option of getting away from a purely heat and serve.
And to go with the speed scratch, so when you say those raw ingredients, is this where we're talking about canned or frozen items, or is it something even further in the processing than that?
Yeah, so one of the recipes that we created for Pacific Coast producers is a Caribbean jerk chicken. Now, you could use a already processed frozen cooked drumstick that comes in, or you could use a raw, chicken thigh. Each district can put these recipes together with the products that they have. And then, I said Caribbean jerk, which can be, a little spicy or have some heat to it, but then we're balancing it with those canned peaches. I live in Minnesota. We don't get very good peaches, certainly not year round. So having a canned product to incorporate to help balance the cost and flavor is really helpful.
That helped a lot to get that visual. So I appreciate that for myself, and I'm sure for our listeners as well. What do you find to be one of the biggest challenges as we're looking at balancing nutrition, the budget, again, all those rules that you've mentioned?
Yeah, it's I think coming from fine dining, like as the three of us are, I think having a professional chef's view of menus and recipe development, and then of course, kind of weaving that into kids' palate, I think there's a certain amount of ingenuity that will go into all of that because we do have experience with big budgets and creating delicious food and delicious food that looks appealing to the eye and is appealing to the taste as well. So there's a lot that goes into that. Speaking from just my eye point of view, my team at my school really does help me in all those aspects because there's so many different things that are happening each day and each month. But we're always trying to be innovative and creative and working with local purveyors, local farmers, local food companies so we can bring in the best of the best to feed our school community as well as we can. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but that's my answer.
I love how you turn it into a positive. This is a positive thinking. So, Chef Jason, I appreciate you saying that, and I feel like I need to emphasize where you are in Marin County is essentially, in some ways, the nirvana of the perfect sun and rain and weather of California. So, Chef Taylor, I'm going to take it to you in San Antonio, and how does it work for you as far as how you source your food or your ingredients compared to maybe what Chef Jason's experience is?
Well, admittedly, we don't do as much of the farm to school stuff that we would like to do, and I know there's not like a one size fits all for that, but we do get a lot of local produce here, and we use local companies, produce distributors here. And then for the most part, just because of our size and how much we can, the buying power that we have, we buy most of our food directly from manufacturers. And that helps in a lot of ways. It's also, a big burden, and we have to maintain a warehouse and a fleet of delivery vehicles and things like that. But what's great about that is it's allowed us to develop a lot of relationships with those manufacturers all over the country doing all different kinds of products, and we're all kind of figuring it out together, the shift in K-12 to chefs in schools like Rebecca mentioned, and also moving to more speed scratch. And we found that when we kind of get together as school chefs and directors and dietitians and start thinking up these big ideas that we want to do, I have started to find that people are listening to that and they're looking for ways to make those things happen in schools, because why wouldn't they? So we do mostly that direct approach. And I think that's probably the biggest reason why.
Taylor, in these plants, these manufacturing plants, is it shelf stable, room temp, or do you have frozen goods that you're working with? Give us a visual of what the storage looks like, or this transition space.
As far as our facility? Or
yeah, so essentially you mentioned that you work with all these manufacturers, and it comes into what I'm picturing is the central place. What does the central place look like? How large is it?
I wish I had the square footage for you. It's big. It's airplane hangar big.
Okay.
Yeah, a gigantic freezer that's been expanded, and a very large dry storage area, and then a cooler as well. I wish I had some numbers for that. It all comes in here, and then we have our own staff that maintains that inventory, pulls it, delivers it, everything.
The airplane hangar, that helps a lot. So Chef Rebecca, as far as, and again, you can hot potato this if you feel like one of your colleagues would be most fit for this. But how do you approach, I assume there's USDA guidelines involved, Buy American provision guidelines. How does that fit into this conversation? For you, is my understanding of more in the consulting role of working with not specific school district, but more on a global basis?
Yeah, so I work with districts all over the country, and I will say every district does this differently as well. Sometimes within the district, the schools are very different. So it's very hard to be consistent. But I have one district in California that they do all their farm to school purchasing through micro purchasing. And so they have 50 farm partners that they're working with individually. That's a lot to manage with, but they're a smaller district. But then, there are some larger districts that they do something called forward contracting, where they put out bids for the amount of produce that they would need. And farmers can actually bid on that one product, like 4,000 pounds of carrots. And so it makes it a little bit more manageable for the farmer, as well as the schools. They're not asking the farmer for 40,000 pounds. So we can kind of share the wealth with everyone throughout. I know a lot of schools are working with more of the emerging farmers. So the, women, BIPOC community, and really, supporting that, which is awesome to see happening in our communities.
This gives me such optimism to hear these relationships and on so many levels. So Chef Jason, taking those relationships, so we talk about food manufacturing and what Chef Rebecca just mentioned. How about industry collaboration specifically?
Yeah, those relationships. So I'm glad both Chef Rebecca and Chef Taylor mentioned relationships, because everyone who kind of visits my school and sees my program say, "Oh, how do you do this?" And I said, "Well, it's all depends on relationships, and it's relationships with everybody that you're working with." And I think that's how I've really found my success working with different local companies and nationwide companies. I think people want to get their products into schools. It is not an easy endeavor for especially young companies, but some do it well or better than others. But we've seen some newer products come online, especially from the food tech world, that has really embraced getting into schools nationwide. And they put a lot of time and effort and funds into building relationships with school districts across the country, and are able to do that. It's a little bit of a mystery for young founders, right? And I think I'm pretty proud of helping some of these companies get into schools and exposing the directors and school chefs from around the country that I know to some of these products that are perfect for schools that maybe the companies weren't thinking when they invented these amazing products that it would be a good fit for schools, or even thinking, school nutrition being on their radar at all. So Chef Rebecca and I go to Expo West down in Anaheim each year and talk to these young founders and young companies, and some of the companies have been there forever as well. But it's always a surprise when we say this would be perfect for school nutrition, and they're curious and want to know more because it's 30 plus million customers a day in America that they could be selling the product to.
So we've covered from USDA to industry to food manufacturers. Let's go a little bigger here. So Chef Taylor, how does policymaking and policymakers fit into this conversation with school lunches?
Well, I personally, in my experience so far in school food, have not made any trips to Austin or Washington D.C. to learn more about that and sort of give my 2 cents. But just in the sort of grand scheme of things, this is a very complex program that we run, and it's our responsibility to be good stewards of what we get. So the unfortunate part is there's a lot of times that you're kind of waiting around to see what the final rule is going to be or what the final say is. Like I said, it's really complex and there's so many moving parts that sometimes I'm kind of blown away that we make it, that we can get through the school year. But that is a big deal. And we're kind of, we just have to follow along with whatever comes down the line.
Chef Rebecca, if you could give just a one-liner, couple lines of what is the project that you guys have been most recently working on together with the recipe development.
Yeah, so all three of us work together as the Healthy Kids Collaborative members and consultants for Pacific Coast producers to create K-12 specific recipes using canned products. So from apricots to tomatoes, we created 10 plus recipes that are specific to K-12. And it's really important that those manufacturers work with K-12 chefs or people that are familiar with the program because there are so many nuances.
And do you see these recipes that have been developed? If you could look at the magic 8-ball, and I'll take this to you, Chef Jason, what would you like to see? Or maybe there's already an idea of what's going to happen with these recipes, if you could share a little bit with us.
Yeah, I think it's been exciting to work with Pacific Coast producers over the last many months, and they are creating a booklet or game plan with these recipes to go out to K-12 school nutrition chefs and directors, showing them how to be innovative with their products, which is brilliant. I hope more companies follow suit. Because I think it's important to, when we're talking about, especially talking about their products, canned fruit and canned tomato products, schools will use them straight out of the can and, kind of dump and serve idea and or dump and cook. And I think showing them innovative recipes is just going to get people's imaginations and creativity going. And that's the hope with this project. And I think anytime we could share ideas and share different innovations, and it'll only improve the way we feed kids in schools.
That gives me such hope of this idea of helping people, because that creativity piece of how do you take this, whether it's right out of the garden or a canned good or frozen good, some people don't have that ability to see how it can flourish in many different ways. And for you to create something, and I'm sure that, and I would hope that really brought out your creativity pieces. So with those, and Chef Taylor, this question is for you. Either of these recipes or just in general, what has been a surprise favorite recipe for the kids that you've experienced in your time in school lunches?
So interestingly enough, when I think about this over the course of this past year, the recipes that come to mind happen to feature main ingredients that are canned goods, but we tested overnight oats recipe that we just used canned fruit and some granola and some vanilla yogurt, and we used the juice in the vanilla or in the yogurt to flavor it, and topped it with the canned fruit. And it sounds, like a simple breakfast, but when we paired it with some sampling and some education and what are overnight oats, something like that with the students, we found that, the testing portions that we made were all gone when we did that. So I was personally surprised. We had done overnight oats as a sampling before, but when it came to building a full package, it worked out really well. And then we did a tomato soup. It was the first time in my K-12 experience so far that we've put hot soup on a tray and given it to a student. But we did a tomato soup with grilled cheese. And we also last year started making our own hummus from canned chickpeas. And while the hummus is not the new favorite entree in our school menus, we found that even at elementary schools where the staff was encouraging and inviting, and we did samplings at all schools, it was a viable option, especially as a meatless option too, which we always want to have one meatless option every day on the menu. It did better than some of our other salads or cold combos that we have served in the past. So it was surprising.
So last question, I'm actually going to ask all three of you because I think it's a great way to wrap it up, is going with the shocking statistic that only 2% of children meet their daily requirements of fruits and vegetables. What are some tips that you have for busy families of how to get more of those into their meals on a regular basis, both in school as well as at home? So Chef Rebecca, we'll start with you.
Oh, this is a great one. So I think it's having, the customizable option. So, have cut up produce, fruit, vegetables already available in your refrigerator with maybe grains and proteins. And so every night, lunch, dinner, whatever it is, you can have your kid, yourself, whoever it may be, build their own customizable bowl. And again, having that option to build it themselves and that additional exposure, I think each time, they'll add a little bit more and more fruit and vegetables to their plate. It's about how it looks, color as well, and taste is important.
I'm really glad that you came back to that because you mentioned that in a school lunch as well, and that sense of giving agency to kids at home or at school makes such a big difference to not being told. Most of us, adults or kids, don't really like to be told what to do and to give options. So thank you. How about you, Chef Jason?
Yeah, I think consistency in exposure is huge. And I do like the idea of different cuts. At my school, we used to do carrots. Actually, we used to do baby carrots straight from the package, but then we kind of shifted it where we found a great organic carrot farmer in Central California. So we get all our carrots from there, a little more production involved. But when we cut it into sticks versus like coins, we see that the kids take it more and better and faster. So I think the way it's exposed is important, matching up with different dippers and different sauces and whatever the vegetable or the fruit is. I think the consistency is the main thing. Don't give up on it. And the kids will gravitate towards it. Absolutely.
And consistency here, we're talking about consistently showing it to them, not the consistency of the food.
Yeah, consistently showing it to them, having it consistently in your home refrigerator or on our school garden bars or salad bars.
Yeah, the studies are incredible where it shows that some kids need exposure 5 to 20 times before they're able to incorporate a new food.
Absolutely.
And Chef Taylor, how about you? What would you say to this question of how to increase that fruit and vegetable consumption in children?
I'll just speak to my personal experience a little bit, and I will tell you that my daughter does not try everything that I put out for dinner, but if she has helped make the grocery list and pick that item out, if she has participated in doing some vegetable prep or in any sort of way helped out in the kitchen, 100% of the time, she will try it. I mean, at least try it. And then the other part of that is if we're doing the everyone in their own room type of dinner, she's not going to try it. But when we all come together, and which is kind of the whole purpose of a meal, and we have to eat every day. So I know that people are busy, but I do feel like taking time to not just sit down and eat whatever mom or dad has put down for you, but if the experience of shopping and cooking and and then sitting together and eating is part of it, along with a little movement in there somewhere, at least in my experience, I have found that has helped to get through a lot more, at least in my house.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that eating in community, and again, continued exposure and the agency, all three touched on such huge pieces.
I will say one more thing. For my parents, my mom, her cookbooks look a lot different than my Instagram feed. And so it's out there. We do have access to good ideas. Even the grocery store that I shop at, it will give you the recipe. You just click the things on the list you need, and maybe it's getting delivered to you. So there are so many. If you like food, there's tons of resources to help you kind of plan your week out.
How can people reach you?
Well, they can reach out anytime to me here at Northeast ISD. You can email me at tthomp1@NEISD. Definitely, if you're in the school nutrition world or you're just interested, you can follow us. We run a Facebook and an Instagram. And one thing I thought of earlier but we didn't mention is schools. It's all an open book. We're not in competition with one another, and so we're always sharing between districts. So all recipes are open to the public, and we love sharing with others. So reach out anytime.
How about you, Rebecca? How can people reach you, and any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's always a collaboration with everyone in K-12. It's all about the kids, so that's what we're here to serve, and we all love to do that. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Chef Rebecca K-12, and my website is schoolnutritionchef.com. Please reach out.
And Chef Jason?
I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn, and using the address at Chef Jason Hull. That's HULL at the end. And yeah, and I'll echo how much we love collaborating, together in school nutrition, but also outside as well. And the goal is always to serve good food in schools. And I feel like we're hitting those notes. We're getting better each year. And yeah, it's been an amazing ride. And I hope to, it's going to be a fun, it's always fun to see how it progresses each year. And it's always shifting and changing. And that's what's exciting about it.
Thank you all so much. I feel such optimism from this conversation of, again, the bridging of the silos and those conversations between all these different farmers and the schools. And Chef Taylor, what you mentioned, that there's kind of no secrets of really we're all in this together to really help school lunches just continue to get better and better. So I thank you all three for your time and your wisdom and your expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we wrap up this rich and meaningful conversation, I want to thank our incredible guests, Chef Taylor Thompson, Chef Jason Hull, and Chef Rebecca Polson, for the work they do every single day to nourish not just our children's bodies, but their futures as well. What we feed kids in schools isn't just about the lunch tray. It's about equity, opportunity, and health. We've heard today how creativity, collaboration, and care can turn a tight budget and strict guidelines into delicious, nourishing meals. And we've seen how partnerships, whether from local farmers, school districts, or food producers, can make healthy food more accessible, even in the most complex systems. If you're a parent, educator, policymaker, or chef, I invite you to keep this conversation going. Advocate for better school meals, celebrate the cafeteria teams, making magic happen. And when possible, make fruits and vegetables a joyful part of every kid's plate, whether at home or at school. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and share it. It helps us reach more people who believe, like we do, in the power of food as medicine, connection, and transformation. Thank you for listening to the Culinary Medicine Recipe Podcast. Until next time, salud and bon appetit. All content provided or opinions expressed in this episode are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice. Please seek advice from your doctor or other qualified healthcare professional.